Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Wrestle Watch podcast. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Doug, as
Uh,
usual.
we're going to be covering a few talents this week from around the world, such as Alex Windsor, Danhausen, The New Day, and Private Party. As always, this is your only home for just talking about free agency in the world of professional wrestling, as well as some, business-related movements. And I know, Doug, you wanted to talk about a business-related movement that has a lot to do with free agency as well, which is the WWE purchase of Triple A. This past weekend, they had the Worlds Collide show. Did you watch any of it?
I watched a little bit. I didn't
Mhm.
watch everything, but I mean, I saw enough. I did see the Vikingo match, which I
Hmm.
thought was pretty good. I don't think I'd go 4 3/4 like Dave went, but it was Vikingo's still Vikingo. I mean, he
Hmm.
does seem like he's a little slower now since the injury. I mean, it
Mm.
feels like he's a little slower, but I'll be honest, that's probably only the second Vikingo match I've seen since his,
Since the return from injury.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's maybe too early to tell. Um,
We have the
I mean,
number one merch seller in all of the wrestling world now is
yes,
Mr. Iguana,
got
right?
got himself in a little hot water with those comments.
Yeah, his comments for people not aware was that he kind of did the lucha thing where you kind of like you spin a little bit of a yarn, half of it's true, half of it's not about, oh yeah, WWE is interested in just bring me up to the main roster right now. My merch is flying off the shelves. It's sold out and everything, you know. And there's probably half truth in there. You know, like I think that would be crazy to not think WWE is interested in having Mr. Iguana appear on like actual WWE programming. He's instantly over as
Well,
this act.
yeah. Well, and here's the thing: if like Rob Viper, if anyone follows him on Twitter, he's a
Mhm.
kind of a lucha guy, and he basically said, this is a common thing in lucha and in Mexico
Hmm.
in general, where they'll hype themselves up and just kind of go crazy in the media,
Yeah.
and that's just part of the culture. Obviously, that's not part of WWE's culture to just let their talent go wild on media. So it looks like he got a little talking to. I don't think my hunch is it's probably not going to be a big thing beyond that. They probably just pulled him back. Maybe didn't really like him bragging about skipping NXT.
Hmm.
I'm sure that I could see that getting some heat with the office because that doesn't maybe it makes NXT look a little bad, and maybe a lot of the talent who are in NXT probably don't feel great about that. So and who knows? Maybe he's just talking. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not even true.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. But
I will mention, of course, that like in the pyramid, I suppose, of WWE wrestling now, because I kind of look at it kind of like a baseball pyramid, you know, like a farm system. Um, they have AAA as the same level as NXT, essentially, right? You know, like
yeah,
and TNA for that matter too. They're all collaborative on that level. And this show, Worlds Collide, did have Chad Gable appear, and I think Rey Mysterio also appeared. So and Stephanie Bakora appeared. So there were a few uh, current main roster WWE talent, but that was it. It was mainly a NXT X AAA collaborative show. So I wouldn't think it's ridiculous to think that in the future that if like Vikingo, if he were to get wanted to bring into the US television scene, I wouldn't think it ridiculous to just be like, oh yeah, he's just going to go straight to the main roster if he's ready from his time in AAA, which of course we all know he is. If they were to want to do that, I don't think that he's the kind of talent that you need to have go to Orlando to learn the hard cam. Um, so
well,
I think it would be interesting to see how that works out in the future. What were you going to say?
I think it's funny because it's very clear that they WWE likes to make sure that NXT is positioned as the lower tier brand to the main roster,
Hmm.
and they've taken that brand and they've made that the one that collaborates with other promotions in the way that
Yes.
AEW does.
Yes.
So I think that there's something intentional in that they're trying to make NXT mimic what AEW does, and then hammer home this idea that NXT is the lesser brand and
Well,
makes them do what AEW does to tie them to being a lesser brand.
I think that the idea there is to make the main roster of WWE appear to be the thing that people are all aiming for as a goal in their careers.
Hmm.
So whether you're a developing wrestler in the United States or Mexico or Japan or the UK, you're all trying to feed yourselves up to getting onto the WWE main roster and having your WrestleMania moment. If the goal was, oh, well, I could just be the top talent in Mexico. If we're doing collaborative shows between main roster and AAA or main roster and Pro Wrestling Noah, then it kind of devalues in their, scheme WrestleMania as the thing that everybody should be dreaming about being a part of.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate way to describe it.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting where AAA is going to be in this,
Hmm.
um, and how, at least in terms of how hands-on and hands-off WWE creative is going to be.
Mm.
Because when you're looking at Triple Mania, which is tomorrow,
Yes.
this is a real Triple Mania? Is this one of those fake Triple Manias?
It's one of the three.
Okay.
But this one was scheduled very hot shot. I don't know how it's being able to be viewed because they shot it out so quickly because they wanted to do the show before AEW's week in Mexico with the Fantastica Mania and Grand Slam. So they wanted the show now. So I don't know if their broadcast partners are going to be airing it immediately live. There was some rumors that some speculation of people online, such as, like the Lucha blogs and people that of the world. The speculation was that they're going to delay airing it until Wednesday. To try to do it as a direct competition, but we'll see. But yeah, it is an official main Triple Mania, but it was announced very quickly. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest. And I think the notable thing was that at this time, there's no way for people in the United States to watch it.
Correct, yeah. And that was another interesting thing about Worlds Collide was that I don't know if you noticed, what was the way to watch Worlds Collide?
I believe that was on YouTube.
It was on WWE's YouTube. So like Sean Ross Sapp was asked about this, about why is it that it was not available on Peacock? And he said his response was that AAA has a deal with YouTube, but the thing was that it was not hosted on AAA's YouTube page. It was only listed on WWE's, which means Peacock didn't want it or didn't plan for it. One of the two. So
Yeah,
it's very and or net and Netflix for that matter too, because they had Money in the Bank that night, and it might have overlapped their coverage of those two events.
I
So
could totally,
it's
I could
yeah,
totally believe it just being a messy situation, and they didn't want to deal with it and just
yeah.
let it be on the YouTube. I absolutely see that.
And I think honestly that it was I know that some people are like have looked at the number of how many viewers it had concurrently and overall and kind of like, made some jokes about it. But I think that, getting like half a million to a million viewers at any time watching that show is a success for a live stream on YouTube for something that was kind of slapdashed in the past few weeks and month. Like I don't think that it's a negative and, for the benefit of the people in AAA, I hope that, maybe people will try to seek out Triple Mania. We'll see how people have noted that the show Worlds Collide was very much so like WWE presents their version of Lucha Libre rather than being an authentic Mexican style show. And people have mentioned that because they've compared it to the card for Grand Slam Mexico, where there's a bunch of tag matches, like, 8, 10 man tag matches, and people are like, yeah, that's Lucha Libre. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Triple Mania goes. And specifically, I know that you mentioned off mic, off camera, before we started, that you're intrigued to see if Alberto El Patron gets the belt back, and if this was just like a planned thing to not have him with the belt at the time of Worlds Collide.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think it's interesting that they don't have a U.S. distribution on this, because part of me thinks, you know, WWE just doesn't want, they don't want to have to talk about this.
Explain it and talk
Yeah,
about it. Yeah.
and I think they also understand that, the Mexican lucha AAA fan is very different,
Mm.
and they like Alberto Patron.
Hmm.
They
They
want
do.
Patron to win.
He's their guy. Yeah.
Yeah, which, obviously that he's kind of that's kind of a little messed up, and then But it's a different situation. It's a different fan base. It's like it's hard to really read that, just especially as like an American fan who's just kind of jumping in from the outside because I've long not been a big AAA fan. I've always felt the promotion was kind of scummy. I'd parachute in every now and then, but for the most part, it was like I think the last like Triple Mania I ever watched was the Blue Demon Jr. You know, bloodbath against Dr. Wagner. What year was?
Yeah,
I don't know what year that even was.
that was like 22 maybe or 23. The last one that I was aware of at all and watched anything of was the one where Takeshita appeared. And he was it was like in a baseball stadium and it was raining or something like that.
See, I mean, yeah, it's what I mean. It's like so. It's like I don't have my finger on the pulse of Triple because AAA's not been good for a long time. Like if anyone remembers the the Voice of the Wrestling Match of the Year poll that they do every year. Last
Hmm.
year was notable in not having a single AAA match on that
On
thing.
the
No,
entire, yeah,
on the
nobody
entire
submitted one.
nobody submitted one. So it's like that really shows how far AAA has fallen, which is probably why they got purchased.
Yeah,
But I really believe that I think it's probable that they didn't want a U.S. distribution because they didn't
people,
really want to own the show,
yeah.
and now I'll say this: like if Vikingo does win,
Hmm.
to me that shows that people in WWE are really taking control of this thing and are going to be in control of the booking.
Yeah.
Uh, because that's, but then it's like if they're going to do that, then why would you even book this match in the first place?
Well, to solidify that it wasn't a hot shot just for the US audience, like being like, hey, no, 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 we're serious about this. This is the direction that we want to go in. So like you're sending the message to the fans in Mexico, like this is what's going to happen here, which is, I think, like like even if the fans don't want that, I think it honestly is good business wise to like solidify. No, Vikingo is the champion. It's not just like a silly promotional thing that we did. I think either way that it's like it's telling of like what the direction of it is going to be. If Alberto wins it back, then it's like okay, well then like AAA is essentially non-canon for WWE. Anything that happens in Mexico stays in Mexico. If Vikingo wins, then I think that that's like sending the signal of like hey like this is our promotion now.
Yeah. And then, but here's the next question that I'm going to have. And this is, tied to specifically what we do. Let's
Hmm.
say Alberto wins.
Hmm.
Um, is he considered a WWE employee? Like,
I think so, right? Because they
right.
they own the company.
Because then it's like you think about how because here's the thing. Obviously, Mr. Iguana talked about him getting shout out to the main roster. He's getting some new main roster deal. So are we just treating all the AAA uh, assumed deals, the ones that the WWE just like assumed and
Hmm.
just took them on? Are we
Yeah.
just going to be going forward for our purposes, going to be treating them as WWE contracted talent? So
Yeah,
like
yeah, I think
Mr.
so.
Iguana is not a jump.
No, no, he's not. No, it'd be like if Ricky Starks goes from NXT to the main roster. Is that a jump?
I
Or
tend
Ricky
to
Saints, excuse me.
I tend to agree. I just think it's important just for the listeners and everyone who's on the committee just to be aware that, that's
No,
how we're going to handle it going forward because I think
yeah.
that's it's a unique situation that we're probably not going to see a whole lot of.
Well, yeah, and I would also point out just as a comparative, if somebody like Persephone was being pursued, who's had interest from WWE prior to them even purchasing AAA, going back into January, little feelers in the media came out that they had interest in Persephone after Wrestle Dynasty. If she signs to tech like on paper, it's signing to AAA. That would be a jump from CMLL essentially to WWE, just like we would look at as she now is known, Blake Monroe, Mariah May going from AEW to WWE, even though it's NXT, it's the Schrodinger's developmental third brand. It depends on if you observe it, whether or not which one it is.
Yes.
Um, so, and yeah, speaking of, I just wanted to mention that the card for Tuesday show for the CMLL show just got released, and it is pretty fun. I just gotta say that out, get that out
The
there.
Friday show?
No, the Tuesday, come Tuesday.
Oh, the Tuesday. Okay, because yeah, we had a whole week really, because we got the
Yeah,
Tuesday
it's
show.
yeah, the Tuesday show is the CMLL X AEW one, and then Wednesday is the AEW X CMLL Dynamite show essentially, and then Friday is Fantastica Mania. So it's supposed to be New Japan with CMLL, but it's going to have a lot of AEW talent on it
Okay, and
also this year.
we also have. I think this is going to be on Thursday. The ROH Global Wars.
That is being filmed with Grand Slam.
Right. So would
It's
that
the
air on
dark. It's going to air
Thursday?
on Thursday as, but it's essentially it's dark matches from Wednesday.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so we got essentially 4 days in a row of this stuff, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is a neat little and then obviously we have Collision on Saturday.
Yeah. Which it's a live collision from Seattle. Yeah. But no, the fun thing that I saw on the card is that Hechicero is now officially listed as a member of the Don Callis family.
I am completely on board with this.
I just think that's really, really fun. That this is on the bill that CMLL released, and it's like Takeshita, Rocky Romero, Fletcher, Hechicero, the family of Don Callis. I'm like, wait, okay, this is what's happening now. Okay, uh, so yeah. How about we get into then the tracker and our updates for it this week? I wanted to mention up front that we are going to be covering Ajo Blanc, the European indie talent who tried out for WWE during their Europe tour. We're going to talk about him next week. So if anybody was hoping to hear us talk about him, that'll be next week. This week, I wanted to start with Alex Windsor. She said that she was all elite following an unsuccessful challenge for the IWGP Women's Belt against Shuri. That was in Pro Wrestling Eve. Is that correct? Right?
It was an Eve, yes.
Yeah, and that match would be. She said that it would be her last indie booking for some time. Shuri even tweeted out saying Winter had signed to AEW. Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that she signed. She's previously wrestled in AEW and in ROH, but she hasn't appeared on screen since signing. How are you feeling about this, Doug? Do you want to categorize this as somebody that is going to stay on the track or a certain, or do you want to call this a confirmed jump?
Well, first of all, I would just like to point out that I am currently wearing a Pro Wrestling Eve T-shirt.
Oh,
This
wow.
is it is currently no King's Day, so I have the Pile Drive a Fascist T-shirt on.
Oh, okay.
So just want to point that out. But I would say, yeah, I think at this point, um, it's pretty clear that she is all elite. She announced she's all elite. I would say Pro Wrestling Eve is I don't want to say they're AEW adjacent, but I'd say that they're no, I think I would. In the same way that Rev Pro is, I think that Pro Wrestling Eve is just not as high profile.
Mm,
So for that reason alone, I think I feel pretty comfortable saying that she is all elite, and I would remove her as a confirmed jump.
yeah, I tend to agree with you, but I think that the committee, due to the kind of nature that we've done before in the past, where we usually don't remove somebody until they've appeared on screen. I think that that's why that they went with just keeping her a certain and staying keeping her on the tracker until she appears officially on screen. I mean, I think
That's
I
fair.
agree. I agree with you, Doug, though.
To be fair,
Yeah,
we should, and
yeah.
because let's be honest, there was somebody who just showed up on main event or released
Mm,
us at least the SmackDown before that's been on our tracker for a year, even though he already
yeah.
signed. So
Uh,
yeah, if we're treating, you're right. So I probably should have thought about that a little bit more. But yeah, so they should be.
I think it's fair either way with
Yeah,
Windsor because if she's saying it, and I think that if Shuri is saying it,
yeah,
she would be somebody that would know,
yeah.
honestly.
And I guess
And
that is different because
Osprey's already talked about it too, for
I
that
guess that is
matter.
different because Hikuleo never told us. We never got any confirmation that Hikuleo was actually signed. We just had
We have
uh
we have reports from people that are like,
yeah,
yeah, no, he's
report
totally signed.
yeah, reports. And I guess it's different when you have the actual person saying it, and also Will Ospreay obviously would have it on on good authority to say that. So I suppose it is a little different, and I guess you can kind of go either way. I'm
Yeah,
fine with keeping her on the tracker at
yeah.
certain.
Yeah, so she'll be moved up to surgeon this week. Speaking of AEW, how about we talk about that Danhausen? We love that Danhausen, don't we? Question mark.
Always love the Danhausen.
I always
So
love the Danhausen.
yeah.
Yeah, so Fightful and Western Observer both reported this week that Danhausen's AEW contract is set to expire in July 2025, which is next month, unless injury time is added. Meltzer felt that it's unlikely that they would do so. Danhausen has not appeared on screen for AEW or ROH in over a year, except for one appearance at Final Battle in Hammerstein at the end of 2024. What are your thoughts about that Danhausen?
So we had Danhausen at toss up.
Hmm.
And I feel like he's been at toss up for a couple weeks now, right?
Yeah, since April.
Yeah. I don't feel that anything has changed since then. I mean, I think
Mm.
we've known that his contract was coming due. That's why we had him at toss up, because we thought maybe WWE might be interested.
Hmm.
Um, but this report changes nothing in my mind. It's like, yeah,
Mm.
we just know that it's coming closer, and AEW might hold an injury, might not. To me, this changes nothing. He's still a toss up in my mind.
Well, I think that I would move this up one tier
Okay.
to, I would move this up one tier to probable, just because now we have a ticking clock, you know, and there seems to be no indication that AEW wants to keep him, right? So I think that that's moving it over the line for me because I think that there are better than 50-50 odds that another promotion is going to want to sign him. Do I think that he is noteworthy enough to be on our tracker? Yes, I do. So that's the first question out of the way.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I think that there's interest from from another one of the major promotions that we look at. I think WWE would have interest in signing him. Um, I mean, like look at Mr. Iguana getting off. Like come on, you got Danhausen and Mr. Iguana. You're just printing monies. So I think that that's a possibility. I think that also it's possible he could go to like a TNA, on a contract, um, or MLW on a contract. Like I think that the possibility of him getting a long-term contract from another promotion is higher than 50-50. So that's why I would move him up one to probable.
I do think he's gonna find a landing spot for sure.
Hmm.
Like, I just don't know that it would be WWE.
Yeah.
But I'm 50-50 on it would be WWE, to
Mm.
be honest. So that's why I would keep him at toss up.
Yeah, I think that because of the money making machine that he is, I think that um, any promotion would love to try to get in on that game, honestly. Uh, so yeah, it looks like our committee is more on my side with this one. So we're going to move him up one tier from toss up to probable.
There we go. So Danhausen at probable.
How about we move one last AEW update for this week? We have Private Partey. The report from Wrestling Observer this week was quite hilarious. It was brief. It was just Private Party's deals are up very soon. That was the entire quote. But today, we had a report from Fightful that says that they are, of course, in a contract year, just as Wrestling Observer said. So within this year, they should have their contract coming up. Um, they learned, Fightful did earlier this month, that WWE had some, quote, preliminary interest in the duo, which who knows what that actually really means. But like there is some interest then from another party to the private party. How have you felt like? I think this is a discussion that we've been kind of having between committee members recently about um, the AEW tag division. And I know that you have some thoughts about how Private Party has been used in AEW.
The tag division in general has clearly gone to the wayside, as I think the Young Bucks have kind of downcycled themselves to essentially being part timers.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I haven't looked at it, but if I have to look at the number of matches that they had in like 2020 compared to 2024, I bet the number is going to be like staggeringly different.
Hmm.
On top of that, I think that there's a couple things going on right now. Obviously, the Hurt business is working. It's very popular. Um, it's not a work rate team, but they're still pretty good. But the tag division is just not what it was, where it used to be just these crazy high spot matches that were just a ton of fun where you had the Lucha Bros, you had Young Bucks, you had, uh, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and just all these really fun teams, just, mixing it up. And Private Party was part of that early time period, but they just they never got to that level.
Mm,
And I think they've regressed since then. I think they're worse. So much so that I pointed out that I don't even remember. I didn't even remember that they won the titles from the Bucks. I
mhm,
remember they won the titles at some point, and I remember not even caring about that reign and just being over them. And I think that speaks a lot because I've watched every single Dynamite. I think I maybe missed one or two, but I've watched every single Dynamite. I've watched every single pay per view,
mhm.
and like I completely forgot. It's like that's just how it is in my mind now with the tag division. Now, having said that, it's very clear that they're in the process of building up a women's tag division right now. Um, I think that you know they obviously have some popular teams, but it's just the tag division is not what it used to be. I mean, now it's Outrunners and FTR is there, but they kind of feel like they're just kind of on the back burner. Young Bucks are kind of on the back burner. They're just doing different things, like larger stories. Maybe when Copeland and Christian get in the mix as a team eventually, it'll be a little more interesting again. But it's not what it used to be.
I would say two things. One, I have up here the data for your question about Young Bucks. So in 2020, they did 29 matches as a team,
Okay.
as either part of a trios match, a tag match, but both of them being in the match, both Matt and Nick Jackson. Which year did you want to compare it to?
Let's do last year, 2024.
28 matches, one less.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But they hadn't wrestled after, obviously, Halloween was the last match in AEW until April. So they had a gap there of around 6 months that they just had off as vacation time, essentially.
Well, and then here's the thing, though. I don't know what that says. That I just didn't even think about that. That feels like a shocking statistic, like
Hmm.
that they wrestled the exact same amount, and I just feel gone. They felt gone last year.
Hmm.
Um, I just so I don't know, and maybe it
Um,
is just because I maybe look at it, or were they? Well, don't worry about it. We don't need to go into the data that much, but I do think that it does feel like it feels off. It feels like tag wrestling is just outside of like maybe what like All Japan with the Saito brothers. Like that's
well,
like the a big
so,
place where it is right now.
so what I've noticed is that when you compare the AEW and WWE tag divisions, they do the same thing, which is your the people that they think as a weight class or a skill class that they think are going to be their big singles champions, they keep them as singles people and not tag wrestlers. And the people that they don't think are going to be singles champions go into the tag division. So look in WWE. Historically, it has been the land of giants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not about technical skill, about size, right? So who are your tag wrestlers? Technical wrestlers and luchadors and aerial flyers and people like that, right? Historically. Um, and even today, same thing, like DIY, Motor City Machine Guns, Aphraxium, uh, um, all those kinds of teams are that kind of thing, right? They're not looked at as possible singles world champions.
Mm-hmm.
AEW does the same thing, but it's the opposite. So your technical guys, your aerial guys are the ones that usually get to the main event scene, like Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega. Um, like Kenny Omega historically is very different from the main eventer in WWE, like style wise. Uh, Brian Danielson had to fight uphill in WWE to feel like a main eventer, whereas in AEW you just accept it as such, right? So that means that your tag division in AEW is currently big guys. You got Hurt Syndicate, you got Big Bill and Brian Keith, you got Gates of Agony, you have Lance Archer and um, um, Brian Cage. So you have all these bigger men that are being pushed into the tag division because they're not going to be world champions. And so that then puts the question of where's Private Party fall in?
Yeah.
And the thing is that like, well, they're kind of in limbo in a no man's land because that's the way that the tag division has been booked recently. That's why like we also see the same thing with the now Paragon, formerly Undisputed Era, where like what are you doing with Roddy and Kyle O'Reilly right now? Well, they're kind of in the tag division because they were kind of feuding with FTR, but they're kind of not going after the tag titles. So it's like you got these guys that are really great technical wrestlers that you put in the tag division that the focus of the title is right now big men. So they can't get over. You know,
Well,
they can't ever push them. You can't push them. There's nowhere for you to push them, essentially.
I think that's the big issue is like when was the last time the tag division was built around a work rate tag team that was just having great matches with tons of different teams?
I would say I'm gonna bring up right now for AEW. I'm presuming we're talking about in particular. Um, I would say that it was probably FTR 2023 when they had that run where you know they did the series with Bullet Club Gold,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the 2 out of 3 falls match and all those kinds of things were going on in that era.
Yeah. Early
Because
collision.
yeah, early collision was the last great time of tag wrestling because then after that you get the Big Bill Ricky Starks, which was fun. It elevated both of them, I think. Went into Darby and Sting, which then vacated into the Young Bucks holding it for like I don't remember how many months, like 5 months, and they didn't really do much with it. Uh, Private Party, their big thing was winning the belt and then not really getting a juicy reign. Hurt Syndicate's been a fun storyline. It's a very over storyline, but they're not necessarily having great matches. I think that I personally think their best match was against Sons of Texas. I know people disagree with that, but like I think that that was the most fully realized like wrestling match that they've actually done in AEW so far. I think that they've had good singles matches, both of them, but like as a tag team, it's just like that's the one like shining star match of their tag run. And I don't even know if I call it a shining star match. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was a acceptable 3-star general match kind of a thing. So yeah, I would say like it's been since 2023 since AEW's tag division has been what people historically thought of it as, which was 5-star banger kind of thing. So that's kind of like the problem then for Private Party and within AEW is, well, where do we fit in this tag division if you're not going to be doing it in a style that we're best fitted for? And so it makes sense then that WWE is possibly interested in them because when you look at the WWE tag division, the way that they've crafted it, uh, I mean, NXT's was centered around Fraxium for well over a year, 2 years even. And you look at the main roster, you have a lot of teams that would work well stylistically with Private Party, like Motor City Machine Guns, like Street Profits, DIY. Even if Penta and Phoenix team back up as Lucha Bros, they would work well stylistically with Private Party. So like there's more room, I think, possibly for growth for Private Party in WWE at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that they have had plenty. I think they've had plenty of opportunities to show out in AEW, and they just,
Hmm.
I said, I think they've regressed over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and
Um,
timing issues with the injuries and everything too.
yeah, that too. So it's like I think a change of scenery would be good for them. And yeah, I agree. I think in general, when you're talking about the work rate tag teams, I think a lot of them have gone to WWE,
Yeah.
and we'll see if that shapes into WWE having a bit of a tag renaissance. I think if they wanted to, they probably could.
Hmm.
Uh, but I just think I also just think in general it speaks to the lack of emphasis on tag wrestling in America right now.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's been that way in Japan for a while. Obviously, New Japan's been the flag bearer of Japanese wrestling for decades at this point, and they've never emphasized tag wrestling. And so it's just like it around the world. It hasn't been a focus. The Young Bucks were carrying it on their backs for the longest time, um, and that just they can only do it for so long.
Yeah.
And
So
now it's like what? So it's at this point we're probably gonna get into this slump we're in. I don't know how long it'll be. We need probably need a new hot team to really take us out.
So, with regards to private parties' position on our free agency tracker, where would you place them right now, knowing that their contracts are up this year? There seems to be some slight interest from WWE, and AEW hasn't used them in a couple months now.
I don't see why WWE wouldn't take them. I would go probably around at least probable. I would consider even going as high as likely. I could
So you're over the 50-50 mark right now of them leaving
yeah.
AEW and signing somewhere else.
Yeah, well obviously I think I definitely think that I think they're leaving because I don't think AEW is going to retain them.
Yeah.
I think AEW regardless was going to let them go.
Mm.
So in terms of when they go, is WWE going to give them a shot? I think that's I will go probable. I'm going to say it's probable that WWE will give them a shot.
I think that it's still in the early days for me with this conversation. So I think that it is still under the toss-up line. I think
Okay.
that it's just possible that's going to happen. I think that it's not an unlikely thing to happen. Um, I think that given like the 50-50 that ball that I have on this is like it's a little bit early. This is the first that we're hearing about it. But at the same time, that Tony Khan has been very generous with them with their contracts, with offering to do things like and it does this offer for everybody, of course, but like offering to pay for university tuition for them. Um, so I could see a possibility of them getting an offer they can't refuse from Tony Khan if he also guarantees certain push
Let
values and things like
let
that.
me ask you
But
this. Do
yeah,
you genuinely think Tony Khan is going to offer them anything?
I think that he'll offer them a standard one-upping of their contract, but not anything more than that.
Okay.
Like I think that he'll do the inflation adjustment essentially, kind of an offer. Because like in all honesty, yeah, they just haven't been used much, and they got their moment. And I don't know if you could say definitively that it was their fault that their moment was squandered from there into not being used much, and like maybe it was because of them trying to figure out something for Hurt Syndicate to do, and they decided, oh well, let's give them the tag belts. But still, that says a lot about how their perception of value within AEW for Private Party. If the thing that they decided to do was like, well, we could just take the tag titles off of them and then have them get squashed by Hurt Syndicate. Like that says a lot.
I also think that kind of that shows kind of like where we're different on this
Yeah,
because if you think that Tony Khan is going to offer them a deal, that is then they have something to go to WWE with, and it's a question of whether or not WWE is going to pay that much to kind of
yeah,
beat Tony Khan. And I think that Tony Khan's just going to let the contracts expire. I think this is going to be AEW
mm,
just letting someone go. I don't know that Private Party is going to WWE with a counter offer.
mm,
But I think WWE is generally interested and would give them a shot. So I think that's maybe the difference why I think it's more likely they end up in WWE, just because
yeah.
I don't think there's going to be a bidding war.
Well, for the moment, our committee, most of them have gone on the less likely side of the toss-up line, the below 50% line, and so we're going to put them in the possible tier for the moment.
Okay, sounds good.
Um, and let's finish up this week with another tag team over already in WWE. That's the New Day, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods. We haven't had any contract updates on them since the last time we voted on them back in March. Their contracts would have expired by now unless injury time was added, which is definitely possible considering both have been out injured during the terms of their contract. They won the WWE World Tag Team Championships at WrestleMania and have had a single defense since then in a 55-day reign. Do you feel like we should? Are you feeling confident at all of keeping them on the tracker at this point? Or I mean, like I feel like remote is the highest that they can go right now, right?
I went ahead and just voted to remove them because I feel
Mhm.
at this point the contract should have been up.
Hmm.
They're obviously still very much with the company, and I think we would have heard something by now if they were just if they were working without a contract right now. I think we would have heard that.
Yeah.
So unless I hear anything else, I feel confident just taking them off for now. Because even if they weren't, I think it was still a very remote chance that they were going to jump anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm ready to just take them off.
Yeah, my view on it is until I hear something, I want to, if somebody's noteworthy enough, I want to keep them on. But um, I understand the viewpoint of, you know what, maybe it's just time to just take them off until we hear something new.
Well, because to me, the big thing is they had an idea when their contract was up.
Yeah,
That
it was supposed to be up at the beginning of the year. Yeah, like
yeah,
January.
we've
Yeah,
we passed that at this point, and they're still
yeah,
there in a a significant way. So to me, that to me says that they've resigned
yeah,
because I feel like I said, if they were working genuinely like on a without a contract, it's like the New Day is working without a contract, and nobody knew that. I mean, that'd be insane. Like that would someone dropped the ball somewhere. That just went out. If that just was the case, and
yeah,
people because we knew when the contract was up, like someone would have raised the question.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that they've probably resigned. Unless I see otherwise, I'm ready to take them off.
Okay, so with that all being said, here is the updated version of our WrestleWatch Pro Wrestling Frames, the tracker. Up there in certain, we have Hikuleo
Hang on,
and
before we go through that,
yeah.
where did the committee decide on New Day?
Oh, like you, to remove them for low
Okay,
confidence. Yeah.
okay. So now we'll run through it.
Yeah, so Hikuleo is up there inserted now with Alex Windsor. As you referenced earlier, Hikuleo has now been cited in person by multiple people. He was featured on Main Event
It's
this
like he's
week.
Bigfoot.
Uh, I feel like this was them proving that he is signed there. I mean, next week we'll discuss it more in depth, I suppose, because this happened after we started voting this week. But my vibe is that this is not showing that they have a lot of confidence in what they're going to do with Hikuleo. If
Hmm.
this is the way that they're debuting him within WWE.
Yeah.
Um, so that is the certain tier. The likely tier, we have Ninja Mac and Zosiah. Speaking of Zosiah, we will be covering Agil Blanc next week on the podcast. In probable, we have B. Priestley, Joe Hendry, Rio, Dakota Kai, and now Danhausen. Anybody of those that you wanted to touch on before we move down to toss up?
Um. No, I think I'm okay. Unless there's anyone for you that
Mm,
jumps out.
No, toss up is Michael Oku, Gigi Dolan, and Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, I don't have the list in front of me, so
Oh yeah, no, I'm aware, so that's why I was going through it.
no, that's fine. But no, I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I think we're getting to that part again where everything is kind of slowing down. You know,
Possible is Alexander Hammerstone, Miyu Yamashita, Ace Austin.
Miu, I do want
Um,
to talk about real quick.
okay, yeah.
So Miu was on Ring of Honor again this week.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what's going on with her. Like it seems like her and Makito are like in a similar situation where like they both really want to be signed by an American promotion and are trying really hard to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. Like I think Miu is someone who would do really well in AEW if they presented her better. Like I
Mm.
feel like every single time she's been in AEW, they kind of I felt like they did a bad job. And
Hmm.
Maki Ito, I'm genuinely surprised that they're not taking a shot with her in WWE.
Yeah. Now down in the unlikely tier is Gabe Kidd, Leon Slater, Saraya, Shinsuke Nakamura, Sari, Bailey, Diana Perazzo, Masha Slamovich, and Cedric Alexander.
I have nothing to add on them.
And down a remote, we have Utami Hayashishita, Sami Zayn, Matt Cardona, AJ Styles, Athena, Bishop Tyre, Chris Jericho, Karrion Cross, and Persephone.
Do you see who Matt Cardona is wrestling at the GCW show before All In?
Who is that
Uh,
you will be wrestling?
he will be wrestling Shotzi Blackheart.
That's intriguing.
Yes.
Um, that's my comment on that. Is that's intriguing.
Yes.
I'm intrigued to see how Shotzi does on the Indies. I think that she'll be very highly booked.
She's always been super comfortable on the indies too. Like she's someone who I remember because I would say before COVID, I would go to a lot of Chicago indies like all the
Mm.
time. And some of the scummiest scummy indies that even I rarely would be caught dead at. Like I would show up there like halfway into the show just randomly, and it'd be like a ring that's barely a ring. And I see her just on the side selling merch. Just
Mm.
so she is very, very comfortable slumming it up on the indies. And I think that she will be very comfortable jumping right back into that.
And I think that that's going to do it for us this week on this week's episode of the Wrestle Watch podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this week. We will be back next week with more free agency news if things happen.
Mm-hmm.
As Doug said, he feels that it's getting a little slow season right now, but maybe it'll heat up and we won't even notice.
Yeah. Maybe another promotion will get bought.
Oh yeah. Well, until next week when we talk about Hikuleo and Agio Black and maybe nobody else, who knows? Or maybe the purchase of TNA, who knows?
Yes.
I'm Ryan. That's Doug. Thank you all for tuning in.